Good morning from Alcorobi. It's a lovely breezy morning, dry. We're lacking water and we're lacking rain, and this is what sunny Catalana looks like. But I've chosen plants using my permaculture skills to survive in such environments, and I freely use resources that nature provides for me, and I call this providence. It's a form of spiritual justice. And my work rate is quite slow because of it. When resources make themselves available, I use them. And so my timetable is very ephemeral. But here you can see there's a selection of plants which either have some sort of drought resistance or some sort of aesthetic appeal. And those that don't, well, they require my constant attention. So we're going to come to this point about water and irrigation and fertility when you see the cistern temple which I'm building, which is going to hold 120,000 litres of water. But before I get there, I'm going to take you on a quick fire tour. So remember, you can find me at an umbrella organisation of projects I've been working on for many years now called Solteriologicgarden.com. So as you can see, there are 3 beds. There's a very dry bed on the left, which generally has most of the drought resistant ornamental plants and flowering plants for bees. Down the middle, a bit more sunshine. And here is a mixture of lots of cabbage, onion, tomatoes, you name it, I can put it in there. And on this side there's a bit more shade, and so I generally put some of the same species of plants, and I may get a later crop because of it. But also on this side, if I need to establish something because it's too dry, generally the climate, then I will think about using this side so that it doesn't dry out so quickly and has a better chance of survival. This is my Holy of Holies. Take a closer look. These are in fact agave flower spikes, which were taken from a neighbour's and erected here about five years ago now. They only collapsed just recently due to well, just generally wind damage and insect damage. But they did incredibly well for 5 years. And in fact, housing a particular area here with a table underneath it, which is unusable now. And this was extended all the way out so that it was quite a large space. And I call it my Holy of Holies. So I would sit there with a cup of tea and just peruse what designs I had for the whole farm. And it was also going to be a private space for volunteers to come and have their own meals and even pray if they needed an area. And so I used parts of an old yurt and wove it all up with cane, and it looked spectacular. So maybe I can show you some pictures of those. But let me say firstly something about how this food tunnel evolved. My father first established the poles, which were brought over from England, London. And I knew that due to his failures that you couldn't grow anything here until you, 1, added a lot more humus to the soil, 2, raised the beds to create deeper soil structures, 3, created some sort of wind protective barriers, which I've done on all 4 sides. And 4, increase the amount of water capture so that I can minimize the amount of time I need to spend here trying to keep everything alive. I've actually experimented quite a lot. I've lost a lot of plants. I mean, I had 4 attempts at growing kiwi here, for instance, you know, male and female plants in different places within the food tunnel. And it's true what they say, you know. I mean, these plants, if everybody could grow them, then you'd see a lot more of them. And in fact, they need incredible amounts of protection to get them going. Some people have had success, but I think that's much to do with the soil structures. And I've been establishing a soil structure here for the last 10 years, and I don't dig this soil, I just add to it. So I've been adding lots of rabbit and straw manure, lots of charcoal, crushed charcoal, and I leave a lot of dead vegetation on the top, and slowly things rot down. And to balance out the type of food crops that I'm growing here, I add these perennial plants so that their root systems can penetrate much deeper into the soil and bring up deeper nutrients to the surface. Just a barrel found down in a dry riverbed with a hole at the bottom to collect the liquid fertilizer. So I put my kitchen waste in this barrel, and I use these biodegradable kitchen bags. But you've got to keep this closed, and you've got to need to contain some sort of lid on the top to prevent the rats from getting inside, then to stop some of the flies from getting out. And that's collected in these bottles, and everything gets a good fertilizing once every few weeks. What do you reckon, Drew? Do you reckon you can do this for a living?
This? I was thinking that yesterday. I was doing a bit of an evaluation. It's too soon to call it because it's still very much a novelty, but I'm enjoying myself just a little bit too much, I think.
Well, good food and good ideas.
Yeah. It's also just nice moving at the pace of life. You know what I mean? It's not dictated anything other than a task and the necessity to start a fire before dark. Everything else between that, pretty cozy.
Give me the impression that you have done stuff like this before, or is it just like natural creative expression?
No, I've never done anything so to say like this. Obviously I work the festivals, which is quite a nomadic lifestyle, and I've always been intrigued by this sort of living, but no, this is my first time doing explicitly something like this. So it's nice to know that I'm doing it well. It looks like I've
gold star at the moment. I know everything about these queens and these hives. I mean, that one over there is producing, on the far right, is producing a new queen. The one in the centre is it's just been split, and I've taken some resources from it. So this one's a recovering hive, and this has a very good queen in it now. Robin bees, they're trying to find a way in, other than through the main door, and that's the problem I've had here with these bees during the summer, is that any hive that's small is an invitation for robin bees to go in there and just basically bomb it out. And that's what they do. They've bombed out about 4 of my hives, but I'm clever because I know how to save them and swap things around, and the thing you've got to understand about bees is that it's your own bees that are stealing from one hive and they're putting the resources into another hive. So I'm not really losing out, and bees don't really live that long, you know, maybe a few weeks in the summer. So I'm not really losing that many bees. And that's the way to look at it. Let's take a view now, more sort of northwesterly, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of established plants here. Some plants are totally inedible, like for instance that crassia, that money plant that you can actually see in front of you, which is there for a particular reason, because it's a superb bee attractant during December to February, when sometimes there's absolutely no plants available. And just here in front is a beautiful sage, and bees don't really go for this sage. This is mainly an attractant to pollinating flies, but absolutely spectacular. I use it all the time in my cooking. And if we sort of focus on the central bed, I have a bougainvillea here which is absolutely struggling to make any sort of distance, and again, maybe a little bit too windy. So with the collapse of the cane structure around me, which needs a few volunteers to help me repair, the plant will probably always struggle. But saying that, it's established now. And if you look along the middle bed, I have a series of citrus plants which include lemon, orange and grapefruit. And the half bottles that you see here actually attract a lot of wasp nests, keeps them dry, but they're there for clotches when I need them during the winter, which is a bit of a contradiction, because now winters are so dry, and it's not so much the coldness that's going to kill a plant, it's whether there's going to get any moisture beneath it. But I do use them occasionally. Okay, so look what I'm doing here. In order for this citrus tree to actually produce more flower and try to fruit, since I've had absolutely no success at all since I've planted these trees, and that's probably around 6-7 years ago now, I'm waiting for them to come on a bit. The root system should be much more firmly established. But in the last 2 years, what I've done is I've planted around the citrus tree with vegetables and fruits, other fruits. Now this is interesting because in Britain, these peppers would never have actually survived another years, but they've come through our dry winters and are now big enough to actually produce an abundance of fruits for me to be able to live on during the year. So I could probably get these to survive maybe even 1 more year after this, so long as I keep this area watered. And especially during the winter, when some people think that these plants don't need water, but they do, just to keep them going a little bit, because it gets that dry here, and especially in a raised bed, which actually dries out even quicker when there's no rainfall, because it heats up and maintains that heat and loses a lot of water to evaporation. So these citrus trees, and I've got 4 of them along this central bed, are in fact all of a sudden doing really, really well, because when I water the vegetables and fruits around them, they've actually responded also. Here's another example, and these are tomatoes grown all around, even with this leaf curl that you generally see in a lot of citrus plants. You see if I could show you that, it's actually covered in ants. Yeah, and the ants are farming aphid, and it's probably some sort of aphid that's causing leaf curl. So anyway, this is looking great, and some of them are beginning to flower. So this could be my first year that I'm actually going to get a citrus fruit from the food tunnel. Here we have an artichoke. Again, it's a perennial that responds well also. And all around it, I'm beginning to grow sunflowers, cucumbers, which were incredibly successful last year. The odd bean, you can see that. I've got lots of self-seeding parsley, which is drought resistant, but wonderful actually, just to create and trap minerals within these beds. And all on the edges, again, what some people don't realise are cabbages are also drought resistant. Now, like a lot of plants, this is in fact a cauliflower, but like a lot of plants, they don't respond with so much fruit. You know, like we're looking for a nice head on a cauliflower, and you're probably only going to get something very small. But there's a very good reason why I grow cabbages like this. If you take a closer look, you see I've been de-stemming it or de-leafing it, and that's because I feed the chickens on this, who absolutely love cabbage leaves. So when I cook, I don't cut the whole head off. I could do, I suppose, if I've got a lot of friends around for dinner, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. I just literally de-leaf it from the bottom upwards, and I give some to the geese and the chickens, and the rest is for myself. Again, it's just a nutrient trap. The more growing you got here, the more root structure you've got going on underneath it, and especially cabbages, who have a very sort of horizontal root structure, and they will feed from quite a distance. So a couple of more peppers with this huge geranium going, taking advantage of the watering that's going on here. But again, it's a nice smelly plant to keep away insects, and these plants really do seem to be having an effect, because this year I haven't seen half as many beetles. As things have come on, I rarely see any slugs here, even though I don't have a pond for frogs or toads. The only real problems, and I had problems last year, were the bigger animals, and that includes rats. I had a rat which ate, I think, every head of the corn that I was growing here, which is a real shame. I couldn't even save the seed on those. And rabbits maybe coming in and having a nibble. Maybe the odd stray dog peeing on here. Even my own dogs do that. But as I become more experienced, I become knowledgeable in how to deal with things. And so long as you train your own dogs, you'd be surprised how well they keep away cats, rabbits, rats even, and birds, which also cause a lot of damage. Again, let's look at this. This is aubergine or eggplant. These were put in last year, and will hopefully, and they've already been in flower, so will hopefully produce my first early crop of aubergines, which I absolutely love. Let's carry on. And we're beginning to see the first fruits of these broad beans. Now, all the broad bean seeds I planted last year got eaten before that rat disappeared. And these are this year's seeds before I went to England for a couple of months. I came back, and with a little bit of extra watering, they suddenly come on. And broad beans are just like one of those foods where I love eating raw. Look at this. absolutely delicious. Just leave the skin there. And there's a few plants like that. I was growing quite a lot of kale here, and just eating that raw. These are snacks, and you can snack all day on this sort of stuff, especially if your fruit garden isn't producing. So again, a load of cabbages and onions, and I've planted leeks this year. We'll see how well they do. But like a lot of things, I can't be here all the time. And so I can't be here to make it rain or to keep away the pests. But I'm planting potatoes really for the first time. We'll see how those do. And if you want to see a little bit of pollination going on, well, this is interesting because the reason why I've got all these cabbages here is because I sold them and I collected the seed, and because they don't breed true, you get a whole variety of different shapes and colours. If I can show you a few. Just looking along. Doing their own thing. Slight variations on the wild cabbage. This one, almost a cow, but not really. So this is one of the driest parts of the garden, and it's very difficult to keep anything alive here. But I've started planting a few leaf beets, yeah. And I've got this irrigation system, which is very good. They have a sleeve where you can see the irrigation hole. They have a sleeve inside there, so that means that the water flows all the way to the end before the pressure pushes out water equally through all these different holes. You see? There. There. And I'm experimenting with this system because I want to see how long it takes for 1,000 litres under gravity to irrigate this whole area. And I've got, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pipes open at the moment. This is what we do at Solteriologicgarden.com. Actually, if you read it, it's got the L missing. So if you want to find me at the website, it's Solteriologicgarden.com. I invite some great volunteers here to express themselves and to help me develop a nice spiritual centre with some great creativity going. So at the moment we're building, we're repairing and reinforcing the food tunnel, which is called the Ark. This is true, coming away from London. and he's doing a smashing job. He's also a good cook as well. But then that's what it's like when you grow up being in Boy Scouts or whatever. You learn a few skills and you can't forget them. This is cane, it's not bamboo. So we go down to the dry riverbeds and we spend an hour or so just cutting it all and then dragging it back up here. You can't hear the winds at the moment, but the wind turbines going, that gives you an indication of the force of the wind today. So this has been ongoing now for about 5 years. This is the first time I've done a real repair job on this part of the tunnel. What Drew's doing over there is actually making more space for me. Where it's collapsed inwards, he's had to pull it all out and rebuild it so it's a bit wider. And but not bad really when you consider it's a free resource, and as Drew was saying, it's like you just go with the tempo of the day and how it's asking questions of you, and then you respond. So there's been other successes, and this is the harvest time, but I have to say there's also been lots of failures, and it's not just me who's had problems with the tomatoes. I mean, they were so diseased it was unreal. I do get 1 or 2 tomatoes per day, but for the 30 or 40 plants that I have here, it's really quite a sad story. And I mean, here's an indication. It's just didn't want to grow much taller than 1 foot. The Artemisia is doing very well. This is the medicinal type, and that will sell seed, and maybe it will be too much of a pest next year. I'm going to have to be plucking out the Artemisia from in between the parsley, which also sells seeds, and some of the leaf chard, which is self-seeding. So that's the idea here. So I want to go over to a perennial system. You can see there's if I just go in there, there's another little gourd coming along, but I want to show you something with a bit more size, decency about it. Like for instance here, look at that, here we are. Okay, so that's a fast growing one, which means basically the more established the plant is, the bigger the leaf and the quicker the gourd grows. It's such a lot of energy to put into flower and fruit set that the plant will wait right to the end of its genetic cycle. And well, look at that, looking at me there again. These peppers are really fast growing. I've been picking these quite young. So we go along, and I've got these sunflowers, and I put them in very late because I forgot I had saved the seed from last year, but I'll save the seed on those again. And these are artichokes. Now I've had very little success with them, but the more they establish themselves, the more chance you'll get flower coming out on those as well. And that's what we eat here. We eat the flower, and it's a culinary speciality really. I've got lots of chilies, and I've been making lots of curries, and this I am now certain is a turnip. And or is it a parsnip? I think it's a parsnip. Sorry, it's a parsnip. Yeah, and I put loads of those in, thinking that well, you know, I must have sown a seed on those because they all look the same. And lo and behold, most of them have survived. They're quite drought resistant as well, and those were the French packet of parsnips which were donated to me, along with parsley. And if I can show you some of that parsley, let's have a look, which is now coming along. This is like French parsley. These are ancient varieties, and parsley is such a great mineral accumulator. And this is the established self-seeded stuff. It grows pretty much as a drought resistant plant, you see. In terms of flower for the bees, well, the gourds really do put on a show, you know. And when times are tough, you'll find the bee going into these flowers, even though it's probably got a very low nectar quality. The other thing I want to say is, if we can look at the corn on the cob, this is all saved seed. So this year I'm gonna select for the best cob, the most vigorous, because obviously you're saving seed and genetic variation occurs because of it. And right at the end of the tunnel, burying this vine, which hasn't done so well this year. It's not produced any fruit and it's died back, but that will be established now, especially with all the watering that's going on around it, with the aubergines, the cows, the artemisia, the tomatoes, there's pepper there, and if anyone recognises it, and this was another gift, this is physalis, Cape gooseberry, and that's I'm hoping that's not the Chinese lanterns, which is the ornamental type, but the real Cape gooseberry, which is a delicious berry hidden in a very sort of like thin valve of a sheath. I suppose the real great success in this tunnel is this sage, and I've never grown sage so well before, and great for cooking, but I think, God, I can just smell that coming out that whiff now, you know. I think that would be really good for making, what they call those incense sticks, where they bundle up a whole load of sage and then waft the air with it. When the name doesn't come to me, but that's a nice Christmas present type idea. I do have some bigger plans for this place. It is the centre of activity, occupies me during my watering schedules in the morning and occasionally during the evening. And I wanted to use solar panels to generate a lot more electric and also to create a lot more shade. So come the summer, when it's so hot that if anything's alive, it's probably a perennial, that I have to put nets up over here, and there's no wind. You can't keep the nets up all year round because they just get torn and ripped to pieces and blow away somewhere down the bottom of the land. So you put them up only when it's essential, which is really during the summer, and it creates shade. That allows the water to come through maybe during the occasional rainstorm, but these are getting less and less frequent. But things are looking good, and I want to show you particularly this year why I've got off to a good start, and why if I can improve on my irrigation system, I could generate enough food to keep me going. Okay, so this is about 3 or 4 weeks on from the previous video, and we've had light rain, which has been enough to moisten the soil. We had a deep rain about 10 days ago, which made a huge difference. Roots penetrated much further down. So I'm just showing you all this sun and moist conditions have created a fantastic show, and I can't wait to get my hands on some of these ripe tomatoes before Twinkle Toes comes along and nicks them. We all know who Twinkle Toes is. So sunflowers are looking good, and down there cucumbers and the odd climbing bean. Only a few of them survived, but I was actually getting rid of a load of seed, old seed, and it included some of this carrot, and there's quite a lot of this. See this carrot? Now they were grown in propagation, in a propagation tray. They were starting to put on a root system, so I just basically planted them in clumps. I just got to get my dog off the bed. So there's 2 or 3 plants there. Dora, off. Come on, Dora. Off. Off. She knows better than that. She's a good dog. So you can see I've got all these different varieties of cabbage, all planted from saved seed. And second year on the peppers, and they're all doing really well now. And I'm already having more than I need. So the time would come when I would go see my neighbours and give them a handful of stuff. Getting quite excited with these sandy, as we call them. So these are melons, and I've never actually successfully grown a melon. Some maize, which got in very late, will probably catch up. But all this mixed planting, this is pure permaculture. You know, tomatoes mixed in with courgettes, mixed in with maize, self-seeding parsley everywhere, carrots, leaf beet, which is beginning to set seed now all over the place. But then it just produces these new shoots everywhere, which is great, which is very edible. And now this Cape gooseberry is falling over from the sheer weight, but that's beginning to produce a few fruits. There we are. And they're not quite ready until they begin to go maybe like this. So let's have a look at this one. Whoop! And there we have it. And that is delicious if you like sour fruit. And that's it really. And I had my first aubergine yesterday. I made myself a nice curry paella. So that's it from Alcorobi at Solteriologic Garden.com. And just to say many thanks again to Drew, who came from London, and he just helped me go forage this down the dry riverbed and reinforce it and repair everything here. Still loads of work to do though.